respectful. So I get behind this guy. Fair play to him. It's a good stance, and it puts it in the public eye. Let's have everything in both languages, especially Welsh, because that's my first language. And I'm
you know what? If I was Welsh, if I were Welsh, I think I would agree with you. I think I would agree with you, Gareth.
It depends if you come from Wrexham.
Good morning, I'm Ellie Costello with Ben Leo, and this is Saturday Morning Live.
Very good morning to you. Great to have your company, and boy, do we have an action-packed show for you this morning. All of the day's top stories with writer and podcaster Lewis Oakley and broadcaster and life coach Jenny Trent-Hughes.
We'll be discussing Boris Johnson coming to the defence of Donald Trump and calling his conviction a Liberal hit job as the former president promises to appeal the court's ruling in his hush money trial.
We're going to be appealing this scam. We're going to be appealing it on many different things. He wouldn't allow us to have witnesses. He wouldn't allow us to talk. He wouldn't allow us to do anything. The judge was a tyrant.
There we go, classic Donald Trump. Also today we'll be meeting this week's greatest Britons, the mother and daughter duo who have invented a teddy bear to help children suffering with their mental health.
We haven't seen that before. That's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing. I was telling Ellie off air earlier, we've had so many emails from viewers saying, why are you running that promo with Ben and Ellie when you haven't done a show together for what seems like months?
No, it's been a long time.
Nice
but we're back.
Nice to meet you again.
Yes, very good.
Are you well?
To meet you very well.
Good.
How was your holiday? Did you have a nice time?
Yeah, it was good. Got a tan.
Good.
Happy?
Yep. Very pleased to have you back.
Thank you.
And very pleased to have you watching as well. And this show is nothing without you, so we do want to hear from you throughout the programme today, please. You can send your views and your comments to gbnews.com/yoursay, and we'll try and share as many as we can throughout the programme.
Yes, before all that, Sophia Wednesday has your morning news headlines.
Ben, thank you. Good morning. It's 1 minute past 10. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. Foreign Secretary Lord Cameron says Hamas must accept the new ceasefire deal outlined by the US President Joe Biden. The US brokered proposal would begin with a 6-week ceasefire. Hostages would have to be freed in exchange for the release of Palestinian prisoners, and it would mean Israeli troops would have to withdraw from populated areas of Gaza. Hamas described the 3-phase roadmap as positive, but a spokesperson for the Israeli Prime Minister says the war will not end until all its goals are achieved.
It's time to begin this new stage, for the hostages to come home, for Israel to be secure, for the suffering to stop. It's time for this war to end, for the day after to begin.
Former Prime Minister Boris Johnson has come out in support of Donald Trump, saying a second presidency is more likely, not less, following his hush money trial. Donald Trump says he will appeal his conviction of falsifying business records, lashing out at what he calls a scam verdict. The former US president claims there was no hush money. It was a normal non-disclosure agreement, properly categorised as a legal expense. The Prime Minister has promised cash for British towns as the general election campaign enters its second weekend. Rishi Sunak is pledging to give £20 million to 30 towns across the country, a move Labour has branded reckless and is an unfunded commitment. The Tory party says it would add the places, many of which are based in the Midlands and the North, to its existing long-term plan for towns. Conservative Minister Andrew Griffith says voters have a clear choice.
We're about sort of a week into the full-on campaign. I'll be out meeting voters this morning as I am. People, are not necessarily made up their mind. I think all of the polls and research I've seen show a large number of people are undecided. And the big job of work for us all, because I think people understand what this Conservative government has done, what it stands for. There's only 2 potential prime ministers on the 5th of July who are going to walk through number 10. I think it's clear what you get with the Conservatives. We don't know enough, do we, about what Labour would do.
Meanwhile, Labour is promoting the party's Power Up agenda as it unveils its battle bus. The UK ambassador to Mexico reportedly has been sacked after he pointed a gun at a local member of embassy staff. A video posted on social media, originally reported by the Financial Times, appears to show John Benjamin aiming a rifle at another man while looking down at the weapon's sights. It was captioned, "In context of daily killings in Mexico by drug dealers, he dares to joke." According to the Financial Times, Mr. Benjamin was on an official trip to 2 Mexican states. And a D-Day veteran has been given an 100th birthday card in person by King Charles. Jim Miller was invited to Buckingham Palace, where he told the King about his experiences of Second World War Normandy landings in Nazi-occupied France. Mr. Miller, who turned 100 today, landed on the Normandy beaches in June 1944 and took part in the Allied military operation to liberate occupied France and Western Europe. He said he was totally surprised and delighted to be invited to the palace. And for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now it's back to Ben and Ellie.
Thanks, Fia, and welcome to Saturday Morning Live. The time is 5 minutes past 10. And our top story this morning, a Tory wipeout could be on the horizon, with a new poll showing the Conservatives could be reduced to just 72 seats at next month's general election.
Yes, and Labour is also predicted to win a huge landslide with a possible 302-seat majority.
Well, joining us now is GB News political correspondent Catherine Forster, who is on Rishi Sunak's battle bus in the northeast of the country. Very good morning to you, Catherine. How is morale in the Conservative camp after this latest poll?
Well, good morning to both of you, and well might you ask after these horrific poll results for the Conservative poll.
Oh, it looks as though we might have technical issues there with Catherine. This is the issue with being on
no
the
Wi-Fi on the bus.
Exactly. It could be in parts of the country where there's little to no reception. So we will try and reconnect with Catherine, and we'll bring her to you when we can. OK, whilst we try and get Catherine back, here's a quick run-through of the latest election campaigning. So Keir Starmer was in Scotland yesterday sharing Labour's plans to create a publicly owned energy company called Great British Energy, with the promise it would bring a huge number of jobs to the area. Meanwhile, Rishi Sunak visited the northwest of England. He hit out at Labour's handling of the Diane Abbott saga, suggesting that Angela Rayner is the one really in charge of the party.
Meanwhile, you may have seen this, the Liberal Democrats and Ed Davey pledged to extend free school meals to all primary school children, starting with those who are living in poverty. He challenged Labour to match the policy. By the way, nice to see a Lib Dem policy being announced instead of Ed Davey rolling down hills or riding bicycles. More of that later, by the way.
Splashing around in the water.
Yes.
The SNP were in Glasgow calling on the government to commit to an emergency budget immediately following the election, with John Swinney admitting that his party faces an uphill struggle.
OK, now to look through the top stories of the day. We're delighted to be joined by writer and podcaster Lewis Oakley and broadcaster and life coach Jenny Trent-Hughes. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Should we start with this piece in the Times? Sir Keir Starmer, he's pitching to the centre ground of the party, and actually he's making a point saying that Labour is a centrist party as well. Interesting point, bearing in mind what's happened over the past couple of weeks with the so-called, some would say, a purge of the left, the Diane Abbott saga, etc., etc. Lewis, let me ask you, is there a place for centre-ground politics anymore? Because I get the feeling that everything's just so tribal these days, that the centre ground has kind of diluted away.
There has to be. We can't carry on with the tribal politics that we've had over the last couple of years, or election cycles either. So, the fact that we're seeing these polls that indicates they're going to have this massive majority, maybe a good thing out of it will be that maybe, as politics will become more centrised. I do think if you're going to have a centrist sort of government, you do need to have a bit of a broad church. You need a few voices from the left and the right in your party, and it does seem like he's purged a lot of the left out of there, although you could say, well, look, they had their chance in 2019 and look how that turned out, so I've got to do it. And I think he's in a powerful position. He can afford to lose a few seats if he wants to, so he may as well get rid of anyone he thinks doesn't toe the line. Whether that is true centrism is to be debated.
Jenny, what do you think?
I am not a member of the Diane Abbott fan club. However, you have to know your enemy, and you have to know what tools they have in their toolkit, what havoc they're capable of wreaking. And I feel he handled it very badly and should have nipped it in the bud from the beginning, because she's way stronger than he is. And I knew that she would end up getting what she wanted. And it makes him look bad, because he should have known that she would have gotten what she wanted. And if he had given it to her quietly in the beginning, then it wouldn't have ended up in the way that it has.
It's an extraordinary development, because Diane's majority in Hackney is something like 33,000. She was pretty much, some would say nailed on to win. And now there's a situation where if she doesn't run as a Labour MP and she runs as an independent, she could well possibly win that seat over the Labour cohort. So it seems like a problem Sir Keir Starmer has made pointlessly.
Well, was it him or was it Rishi Sunak? I think this was probably the benefit Rishi Sunak was hoping on in calling a general election out of nowhere, that Labour probably were hoping to solve this a little bit further down the line on a busy news day where no one would notice, and that would be that. But actually, the election's been called a lot sooner than they were banking on, so now they've got this problem. And,
they've had a long time, though, haven't they, Lewis?
Well, I think it was December it wrapped up.
But this letter was written in April 2023. Yeah. It was public. It was very short. Everybody knew what was in it. An apology was issued. There was an investigation, as you say, that was found out in December. Why are we now in June and a decision has only just been made with an election 4 or 5 weeks away?
I think maybe, as Jenny's saying, she is powerful. She is a powerhouse, a trailblazer, whether you like her or not. I think maybe he was just a bit worried about how to even approach it, and just thought, well, we'll just kick the can down the line and it'll solve itself eventually.
But then how does that make him look?
Well, that was exactly that was what I was just going to say, is that if he isn't capable of managing his own soldiers, then how on earth is he going to manage the country?
And that's what's been jumped upon by the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, this week, saying, well, if you can't stand up to Diane Abbott, how are you supposed to stand up to the likes of Putin? Exactly. It's made it easy for the Tories to attack him this week. Look, we're going to try and reconnect with Catherine Forster, who is on Rishi Sunak's battle bus in the northeast of the country. Good morning to you, Catherine. And how is morale in the Tory party after that devastating poll last night?
Yes, absolutely horrendous numbers these for the Conservative Party, if, of course, they were replicated, projecting Labour to have a 300-seat majority, the Conservatives down to between 60 and 70 seats. The majority of the Cabinet looks set to lose their seats on those projections. But, of course, it's just a poll. And when this poll dropped last night, we were having dinner. I was sitting next to somebody from the Prime Minister's team, looked at it with her, and she just said, it's a poll. The only poll that matters ultimately is the general election itself on July the 4th. They are focused on doing everything they can to turn things around. They're working crazy, crazy hours. She said to me, we just want to do everything we can. They don't want to have any regrets, the work that they could have done come July the 5th. But what has struck me, I've been around the Prime Minister quite a lot in the last few weeks, both on the campaign trail and in Vienna and in Berlin and Warsaw before that, is just how incredibly, really, under the circumstances, upbeat and positive and energetic he is. He seems to believe that it's all to play for. He seems to believe that the result is not a foregone conclusion, and they feel that they have got the energy, that they have got the momentum. They're coming out with new policies, out and about, talking to voters. Labour playing it very safe. But of course, Labour have everything to lose. The Conservatives have everything to gain. Labour are playing it safe because they are so far ahead in the polls. They want to do as little as possible, really, as little as possible to jeopardise that, whereas the Conservatives have very little to lose at this point. So they are, throwing everything at this. But, it would be a monumental task to turn things around now. Worth saying, of course, back in 2017, Theresa May was expected to win a big majority, wasn't she? That's why she went to the polls, and she ended up losing the majority completely. So things can always change, but there is less than 5 weeks now till the general election. So, let's see.
Yeah, Catherine, I'm not sure if you saw it, but our friend Camilla Tominey wrote an interesting, to say the least, op-ed in The Telegraph last night, headlined, Whisper it quietly, but Rishi Sunak is making an extraordinary comeback with Starmer floundering, Farage flailing and Sir Ed Davey acting a fool. A Tory revival is now on the cards.
Yeah, I did read that piece, and one of the PM's people had spotted it too. Because Camilla has been pretty critical, actually, of the Prime Minister recently. And of course, there's many people up and down the country that are fed up to the back teeth of the Conservatives and desperate for change. But what she was saying is that reform, you know, one thing that Rishi Sunak has done in going early against advice and against pretty much everybody's expectations is court reform a little bit on the hop, because Nigel Farage says he planned to stand, but he doesn't have the time. So he's caught reform out. Are they really going to be able to field candidates right across the country? You know, they're going to have to do this in a rush. And also saying, you know, obviously Labour haven't had a good week because they want to talk about their 6 steps, but we've spent days, haven't we, talking about this huge row that's erupted over Diane Abbott. So she certainly feels, and I think people feel here a little bit too, that they have got a bit of the wind in the sails. But of course, are the public listening? Because many people have simply switched off completely, have decided we want rid of the Conservatives, and that's the end of the matter. So we shall see.
OK, Catherine Forster there for us in the northeast of England. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Catherine. Yeah, not sure if you saw as well yesterday during Starmer's trip to Scotland for this energy shindig, he took a private jet, which was quite funny, bearing in mind he'd criticised Rishi Sunak maybe a couple of days before for taking helicopter trips. So there we go, make of that what you will. Lewis Oakley, let's come to you with our next story. The Telegraph, actually it's from the Daily Mail. Boris Johnson has penned a column in the Daily Mail saying that Donald Trump's conviction in the United States, 34 charges, guilty charges for the hush money trial, was a Liberal hits job that would only make his election more likely in November.
It's so hard with this story to figure out what's really going on, because any time you read anything on this, people are usually really tribal. They really hate Trump. They're like, see, this is why it's right, or they really love him and they say, see, this is so it's wrong. As a Brit, trying to read through all this and really understand, would this have happened to an ordinary person? Would they have really put these charges against him? No, but then he's not an ordinary person, so maybe you do have to have a really clean slate legally. It's an odd one. I do think what you've got to be focused on here, what do the undecided voters in America think? Is this going to, is his conviction going to make them go, that was unfair, so I'm going to vote for him? Or is it going to make them go, oh my God, these are our options, a convicted felon, or this other guy that can't get through a speech?
What do you think of Boris's intervention? I mean, are you surprised? Of course, I mean, he's allegedly, Boris is a right-winger. Some would argue he wasn't that in the latter days of his premiership, but he's been pretty emphatic. He said it's a mafia-style hit job on Donald Trump. It's lawfare, and it's only going to double or treble his chances of winning in November.
I mean, call me a really cynical person, but I just think, is Boris just trying to play to a bit of Trump base because he wants to go and do an American-speaking tour and thinks that they'll pay money to see me? I better join Team Trump. I don't know. But he's a former Prime Minister. He can say what he likes. This is his judgment on it. It's a very odd place. It places the British government and the Labour Party in a very odd situation where it's like, well, what do you want to say? Because you don't want to come out too hard against Trump because he could be the next president. But someone has been legally found convicted of a crime by their peers. It's a very tricky situation. So I guess former Prime Minister is the only one that can sort of say what they think.
Jenny, really interested to get your thoughts.
I now have 3 people looking at me. There's a history in American politics of when you want to get somebody for something and you can't get them for what you want to get them for, you poke around until you find something. So like Al Capone, the mafia don, got done for tax evasion. Yeah. People get done for speeding tickets. That's very common. So I did think absolutely that he was going to get convicted. However, I thought he was going to win the first time, which did not make me happy. And I said to all my friends in America, pull your fingers out because he's going to win. Oh, no, he'll never win. Don't be ridiculous.
Why don't you like Donald Trump, Jenny?
Oh, please.
Lots of people like him, so it's
well, yes, question. Okay. If you want to talk about... Wait, let me just say one other thing. Yeah. And I think that he will win again.
for you.
And I didn't think there was any doubt that he was going to win again. And I think that I do agree with Boris. I think that this is almost confirmed that he will win again because of why he wins in the first place. And he wins in the first place because he epitomizes somebody who's going to rescue you. And you don't vote for people anymore because they're going to do this or not do that. What are they going to do for me? And Trump manages to convince people that he's going to make everything okay for them. And that's why they vote for him.
Yeah, Tom Harwood, actually, last night, our deputy political editor, he was on Newsnight last night. He said the same thing about our election here, that it's not even about policy anymore. It's just about characters and brands and names.
Well, this is the thing that, makes me just look at this whole situation in dread. America is not in the best place, and you've got Trump just talking about Trump. And for me, and a lot of people say he's going to win. This will help him win. And I'm just like, but surely the American people care more about themselves and their lives and what's in their pocket at the end of the month than Trump's drama, but it apparently not.
No, but that's not... The thing is that they're not voting because of the drama he's going through. They're voting for him because they think that he's going to make their life better. That
but
he's
surely
the only
he's not talking
person
about any of that. He's not talking about the issues that are affecting Americans. He's talking about the issues that are affecting him.
He talks a lot about the southern border, the immigration problem. Something like 10 million illegal migrants have been in the country under Biden's watch. So he does... I mean, illegal migration is probably the #1 topic in America right now. And that situation on the Texas border is a big one.
Yeah, but I think it's really interesting what you were alluding to earlier, Lewis. I think for people who love Trump, this is being seen as a liberal hit job.
Yep.
For those who hate him, they say it gives them faith in their judicial system. But for those who are undecided, those swing voters in swing states, I think that's what's going to make this election really, really interesting. Yep. We are out of time, I'm afraid, but thank you so much, both of you. You're with us in the next hour. We'll catch up with you a little bit later on in the show. But coming up, we're going to be discussing the science of slimming. You'll have an opinion on that one.
Yeah. Any secrets?
Well, yours would be just don't eat a lot.
Yeah. Is that... You not agree with me?
No, I'm the same.
OK.
That's that done.
Well, we'll get stuck into that in a short while. But up next, the SNP is urging Scots to do national service and vote out the Conservatives at the same time. We'll be heading north of the border to speak to our reporter, Tony Maguire, very shortly. This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but actually, it's about you.
And we won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear
all sides
as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Have government done enough, do you think, to actually help them out?
I think there will be occasions where people have tried to run a venture, whether it be a pub, a restaurant or anything sort of like that, in the hospitality sector, and it hasn't become commercially viable because of costs, because of bad accounting or because of bad business people. That is just a fact of life. That happens in every sector. So there will be pubs that are closing because they've been poorly run. But I do think there will be occasions where people are forced out of the market. So if local councils aren't being able to pass on business rates, for example, maybe central government can do more. It always tries to do more to cut beer duty and things like that to keep pubs going. So I don't think it's necessarily just as plain as what James is saying, is that, bad pubs will just inevitably be falling by the wayside.
The idea that you two gentlemen, you raging capitalists, support the government stepping in to protect pubs seems to me to be particularly peculiar. If a pub isn't commercially viable, it has to be allowed to fail.
Well, Sadiq Khan, he has a nighttime czar that he pays well over 100 grand.
Yes.
and businesses are going under like you wouldn't believe in London.
She's a real nightmare. What's your point?
Well, the point is that Labour aren't exactly helping out these businesses, are they? So
I'm saying that pubs should not be protected by the state. I'm all for a pub.
Well, I'm not suggesting that we subsidise pubs.
Well, that has been suggested. That's what James May is railing against. Although I have to say, it's all very well for James May and presumably his very posh gastropub. But if a pub is not fit for purpose, and May makes this point, you've got to have decent, clean loos and a clean pub. And also, realistically, in this day and age, times change. You've got to put on some decent grub as well if you want it to survive. We can't have the government stepping in to save our pubs. And anyway, my understanding over the last 10, 20 years, as a percentage, we haven't lost that many pubs, so they're not going under anytime soon.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live with me and Ben. Lots of you getting in touch this morning. One's just caught your eye, hasn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the law is, but maybe you can tell us or we'll Google it in a second. But someone says, not much health and safety on that battle bus with Catherine Forster. The cameraman's rolling about like a drunken sailor and no one has a seatbelt on. I would have guessed that you don't need a seatbelt on a big coach like that. Let me just
have a quick...
Ellie's going to Google it now.
Driver must wear a seatbelt if fitted.
Just the driver?
All passengers over 14 years old must wear seatbelts if fitted. There you go.
Maybe it's not fitted.
Should be using it.
Let you off, Catherine.
Yeah, very eagle-eyed, all of you. You don't miss a trick. Loads of you emailing in about that. So do keep your views coming in on any of the things that we are talking about today. gbnews.com/you'll say.
Yes. Right, moving on. The SNP leader, John Swinney, has urged people to take part in a Scottish national service by using the general election to vote Tory MPs out of office.
Yes, the Scottish First Minister has taken his election campaign to the northeast of Scotland, insisting his party can remove the remaining rump of Tory MPs both there and in other parts of the country.
Joining us live now is GB News Scotland reporter Tony Maguire. Good morning, Tony. What's this all about then? I would have thought, maybe in my ignorance, that the SNP should be focusing on the Labour vote as opposed to the Tories.
Yeah, that's pretty much bang on. I mean, Scotland is interesting. Unlike England, there are no Labour, Tory marginal seats here in Scotland. The SNP is essentially fighting on two fronts. Now, they have said that they want to, enlist, if you like, Scots into this national service to boot the Tories out. But the Conservatives only actually have 6 seats after the 2019 election, and they are not the biggest threat. Labour, who came out of the last election with just 1 seat, they've since doubled that to 2 last year. But now they are projected, some polls are saying, to get as many as 26, 28 seats. Now that is catastrophic as far as the SNP should be concerned. And certainly this past week, as we've been following the SNP around Scotland on this election trail, it has kind of dawned on me on the long drive up to Aberdeen today that we haven't actually heard anything too substantial from John Swinney or the SNP. Now, it's very early in this election campaign, but so far the 2 key messages which have been repeated over multiple days is this national service to boot the Tories out, and also, a vote for the SNP is the only vote that would ensure that they will keep Labour in check, and they're almost putting out this assumption that Keir Starmer's Labour is going to be the next government. It's quite interesting. Now, Labour, of course, they brought out the GB Energy idea yesterday and introduced that to Scotland. That is, due to be headquartered here in Scotland. If it goes ahead, it's worth saying. And John Swinney used yesterday's opportunity in Glasgow to say that, to urge caution, essentially, against this scheme, because it could lead to the loss of significant number of jobs up here in the northeast. Now, to me, that was a prime example of, where he could have introduced the plan to protect jobs in the northeast, protect jobs in the oil and gas sector, because Labour, as we know now, has plans to not allow any more oil and gas licences, and that, of course, would be a huge blow to this part of the country.
OK, Tony Maguire, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much.
Right, thanks, Tony. It's officially summer, is it? No, it's not.
Well, it doesn't look like it if you step outside.
Doesn't feel like it.
I was reading something yesterday that apparently it's going to be one of the wettest summers ever. 50 days of rain.
That wouldn't surprise me.
50 days of rain.
The Met Office put a statement out this morning, or one of their meteorologists did, saying that April and May were the warmest in maybe the last 100 years or something.
Well, it certainly didn't feel like it here.
Yeah.
But anyway, it is apparently summer, and we have a brand new summer giveaway. £15,000 in cash to make summer spectacular, a brand new iPhone, AirPods, and £500 to spend at the UK attraction of your choice.
Very good. So if you like theme parks, visiting stately homes, or fancy a spa day out, I know you do.
I do, yeah.
This one could be on us. Here's all the details you need to win.
It's the Great British Summer Giveaway, and have we got a prize for you? There's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your summer spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction, so you can enjoy amazing days out this year. For a chance to win the iPhone, treats, and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Very good luck to you. Coming up, are modern day diets too complex? This is a topic that I always get in trouble with the viewers about because I'm so clinical about the response. I say just stop eating less and move more, but I know there's a lot of nuance to it, especially when it comes to the viewers. So we'll get stuck into that very, very shortly. This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel. Stick with us.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
We'll be there.
This is GB News.
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
The Princess of Wales has said she's excited by a new report on prioritising early childhood, a cause, as we know, that she's closely associated with.
Yes, the task force findings claim that the UK could reap £45.5 billion in economic benefits if firms prioritise early childhood.
Well, let's talk about this now with our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. Good morning, Cameron.
Good morning.
I suppose it's characteristically Catherine, isn't it, to say she doesn't want to distract from this report by sort of people talking about her health. But we should start probably by saying she said she's not feeling well enough to come and talk about this in public, but sort of saying she's watching it, keeping a close eye from behind closed doors.
Yeah, absolutely. This should not be seen as a return to work by the Princess of Wales, but I have been told she's A, read the report and B, been briefed on it. But this all stems really from her work when she started being a working member of the royal family, where she was working closely with people suffering from addiction, mental health problems. And what she found is all of these issues tend to stem from a poor start in life, so the first 5 years of a child's life. So in January 2023, she set up Shaping Us, this awareness campaign for the early years. 2 months later, she convened the business task force, so 8 members of big businesses across the UK, and over a generation, that could add, as they claim, more than £40 billion to the UK economy each year. We spoke to Peter Grigg yesterday. He's the chair of Home Starts UK, a charity which supports young families. Let's hear what he said about the Princess's role in this.
She's been a real driving force behind the report and everything it's done. And when we've spent time with the Royal Foundation, what it does, it reminds everyone that this is really important work and early childhood matters, that more businesses should get involved, that more charities are out there for people who want to do more to support families and children. So it's been a wonderful experience.
The People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back. 10:34. Ben and Ellie with you on Saturday Morning Live. A few more comments flying in. One from Caroline for you, Ellie. Morning,
yes.
Ellie.
Morning, Caroline.
Love your cardie. Where did you buy it, please?
Thank you, Zara.
Not Primark?
Not Primark. Zara. And actually, Lewis, one of the producers here, said that his mum saw me in Zara on Oxford Street, and I was like, I live in Zara on Oxford Street.
I do love Zara.
That would be why.
I love Zara.
But yeah, this is from Zara.
Fred Burton. Good morning, Fred. You say, Ben, I stopped eating less and put on weight. Fred, I'm not sure if that's scientifically possible.
Well, it depends what you're eating, actually, as well, doesn't it? I know you say it's just about numbers, but it is about what's inside your food.
Yeah, we'll find out more.
We're going to find out more in just a second. That links very well, actually. And one from Sally Ann, who says, morning, Ellie and Ben. Please could you go back to your usual light-hearted Saturday Morning Live, where you'd showcase independent British retailers and businesses, applaud a good-hearted Brit who'd done something selfless and wonderful. Plus, Ben, isn't Ellie supposed to be teaching you about fashion? We need a break from all of this election stuff. Yes, Sally Ann, we understand. It's because we're in a general election campaign and we have to do a lot of politics. We have to represent all parties throughout the programme, so things are going to look a little bit different, aren't they, for the next 5 weeks?
But come on then, give us a fashion tip.
Get yourself to Zara.
Yeah.
Well, I just say to you today I'm wearing light blue and you've worn light blue.
Yeah, I took
Other
note.
brands are available.
I heeded your advice.
Yeah,
there we go.
We've coordinated today.
I've done a Stephen Dixon and colour matched you.
Coordinated, yeah. So we will be back to normal form in 5 or so weeks' time. But yeah, we're with you and we hear you.
It'll be quite a gruelling 5 or 6 weeks.
Yes.
So bear with us. Now, let's move on to the next topic. Health trends and diet fads. They continue to flood social media. You've probably seen them on Instagram and whatnot. And weight loss experts say that 7 of the 13 most popular diets today are so complex you need a scientific degree to understand them.
Yes, new studies show that 95% of us spend less than half an hour on research before adopting a new health trend, and that a third of us think that the more complex and scientific that a diet sounds, the more accurate we believe it to be.
OK, so why is that, and why are so many diets kicked into touch within a week? Joining us now to get to the bottom of it is Chief Medical Officer at Void, Dr Irim Chowdhury. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. Am I being a bit mean by just saying losing weight is as simple as eating less and getting off the sofa more?
Well, I think it's great you bring up this point. I think the mantra around move more, eat less has been around for quite a while, and we're seeing the science is always evolving in the area of obesity. We know a third of people today are obese, 2/3 are overweight or obese, and so we know this is a huge public health problem, and our current methods and approaches just haven't worked. And so I think people are struggling in being able to solve their weight. I think we've seen that people are able to lose weight, but whether they're able to sustain that, that's the main challenge we're seeing right now.
It seems to me like there's a lack of education when it comes to what people should actually be putting inside their bodies. I mean, 95% of people spend less than half an hour researching a diet before adopting it.
Yeah.
You don't actually know what you're doing.
I think that's a problem. I think broadly what we've seen is that there's just so much information and there's so much exposure to social media and misinformation. There's a plethora of diets dating back almost from the 1960s, from Atkins to low carb to intermittent fasting, paleo. There's just alkaline diets. I've heard sort of cabbage soup diets.
Yeah.
And at Void, we've just seen a plethora of people who come to see us who've been trying to lose weight for over 10 years and have tried a multitude of diets and failed. And it's not necessarily just the lack of information, it's actually being able to implement what they're learning and what they're hearing about. But I think based on the research that we've done, people are only understanding a very small component. And they're certainly having a bias for what they're hearing that's increasingly complex. So we call this authority bias. So when people hear complex terms, they actually believe the diet's more credible, and that's what our research demonstrated.
Yeah. It sounds clever, doesn't it? It sounds like it's got some substance to it. What do you make of Ozempic and other weight loss drug injections?
That's what I was going to ask.
Sorry, are we just going to eliminate diets altogether with these so-called wonder drugs?
Yeah, so I'm always keen to look at obesity as a complex, multifaceted problem and not to be reductive to just one solution, because it's different components that will move the needle for individuals. We know that really with obesity, we're sitting at the intersect of biology, where almost 80% of why we're obese is due to our genetics and our inherited components. And then there's lifestyle components and the environmental factors. So GLP-1 medications, certainly a lot of interest in them. Why? Because I think it's been challenging to treat obesity, and this is the first substantive drugs we've seen where we're getting life-changing results. So at Voi, we've seen people who have been trying for so long, and they're able to lose 10, 20% of their weight within 6 to 12 months. And actually what they're finding is that they're able to keep that weight off. The kind of individuals that we were seeing, they said they couldn't even look in the mirror. 90% of them saying, we don't like looking at ourselves. They lacked confidence to go shopping, and so the impact on their lives has been quite transformative. But in terms of the medications themselves, they're one tool which we're seeing a lot of promise, but there are other components you also need to try to work on to be able to move your weight and your well-being.
How helpful or unhelpful do you find social media when it comes to talking about diet culture? Because we have more access, don't we, as you say, to conversations about diets and different ways of losing weight. But you also have anybody offering that advice. It's not just nutritionists or medical experts. Does that concern you?
There is a degree of concern there, but I think it's great that the conversation is happening. Like, we're aware of a lot of individuals who are suffering in silence. They've been fobbed off by health professionals. I mean, there's a lot of fat shaming that goes on. And so they're able to at least access some information. What I would encourage people to do is to try to then look at that information, try and critique it. But I don't think you need to fully understand every element of it yourself. I think seek help, go speak to a health professional. I would say myself, even health professionals themselves lack the training in nutrition and weight loss. And so you need to potentially look at more specialist services that have a bit more insight onto actually what's going to be appropriate for you. I think also with social media, it's always important about contextualising what you see and learn to your own life. Because what we would implement in terms of an individual who's potentially a CEO, super busy, or a single mum, that changes dramatically. And I think it's a fallacy to think that we have these static lives. There's always a birthday happening, or that you're going on holiday, and your goals.
Or dinner out with friends.
Dinner out with friends. And you want to be able to enjoy those things, but be able to have sustainable results. There's a huge difference between losing weight and maintaining weight, because your biology fights against you.
Yeah, defo. Look, it's wedding season. Lots of weddings coming up. My Instagram is full of my friends getting dolled up and, heading to big gatherings. Any tips for people to lose weight safely in a quick, relatively quick amount of time to get in top-tip shape for weddings?
Yeah, and I think great question. I do strongly believe in this as a marathon. So ultimately, if your aim is for having a great sort of weight, your health being at a top level, you really want to look at sustainable lifestyle changes. So that means looking at your nutrition, looking at your exercise, cutting down on your ultra-processed foods, trying to maintain habits that you can achieve. I think very much we get paralysed by perfection and think very binary. I often get asked, what's the healthiest vegetable? What's the healthiest oil? Well, actually, it's more doing 80% of great things and good things and actually giving yourself a little bit...
Come on, Erin, we want a fad diet for the next 6 weeks to get our viewers slim and trim.
That's the problem, isn't it? People want the quick fix, but it is, as Dr. says...
Sometimes you need it,
It's lifestyle.
Yeah.
It is a lifestyle, though. It's just committing yourself, isn't it? As you say, 80% being good.
Committing yourself and also...
20% of what you like.
I think you mentioned someone who'd emailed in, but an individual who actually loses weight actually realises they actually have to take less and less calories because your body adapts to try to regain the weight.
Yeah.
Because we're built on trying to survive where there's been a poverty of food in the past. But actually, we live in an environment right now where you can get a plethora of food whenever you want on tap.
Same in reverse as well. When you become more muscular and fitter, you need more calories to just maintain your maintenance levels. And the science, I love all the biology and the science of it.
It does.
When you're losing weight and you're in a calorie deficit, after so many weeks, say a couple of months, and the weight loss has plateaued, I found from research and self-experience that it's a good idea to have a big feast of one day where you feast and you eat over the calories, and it kind of kick-starts your metabolism.
Your metabolism starts to reduce as you lose weight. So if you lose it with rapid velocity, then actually you'll find that your body just kind of starts to try to gain back those calories. And we call it the set point. Trying to not get too scientific, given that we're already talking about this being quite complex. But actually your body wants to try to revert back to what it was before you'd lost the weight. And so you're really fighting your biology. So you've got to use multiple methodologies, from the behavioural change to medications to coaching to really making yourself accountable. But I think most people know what to do. It's really trying to support them in the implementation of that for their lives and sticking to it.
Exactly.
Consistency is king.
Good to see you. Thank you very much. We could talk to you all morning, but we can't, I'm afraid, because we've got to speak to our greatest Briton, which is coming up after this short break. This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office. The start of June and a beautiful start for most of us. High pressure building in from the west, bringing fine weather and some warm sunshine. Although it's not going to be completely sunny everywhere, there is some cloud to talk about. For East Anglia in the southeast first thing, a few light showers. They tend to disappear by the afternoon, but we keep the cool breeze coming in from the North Sea. Likewise, there'll be some patchy cloud elsewhere, especially for northern England into the Midlands and to parts of Wales, where the odd light shower couldn't be ruled out, but these are the exceptions. For many, it's a fine Saturday and plenty of warm sunshine, highs of 21 or 22 Celsius away from that cooler east coast. Into the evening, we'll see plenty of sunshine across much of Scotland, just some fair weather cloud out there, particularly over the hills. And for western Scotland, southern parts as well, temperatures likely to reach the high teens or even low 20s. Some decent sunny spells for Northern Ireland as well as we end the day. That thicker cloud, I think, for the Pennines into the Peak District, parts of the West Midlands and Mid Wales. Just 1 or 2 light showers. These will be the exception. For many places, it is a dry Saturday with that high pressure in control. Now, overnight, we're going to see patchy cloud here and there, but plenty of clear spells. One exception, Western Scotland. Thicker cloud arrives here along with some patchy rain and drizzle. That'll keep temperatures in the double figures, but where we've got the clear skies elsewhere, temperatures dipping into the single figures, even the mid to low single figures in 1 or 2 sheltered spots. But we begin Sunday with long sunny spells across eastern and southern Scotland, much of northern and central England and Wales. And actually, for southern parts of the UK, we keep those sunny spells into the afternoon with light winds, a beautiful day. Cloudier skies for northern England, Scotland and Northern Ireland, and some outbreaks of mainly light rain for the north and northwest of Scotland.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. The time is 10:47. We're about to meet our greatest Britons. I'm already giving us a giggle in the studio, but a view has just caught your eye, so should we share that first?
Yes. Terence, he said, "Hi, Ben, I saw you crossing Buckingham Palace Road yesterday and tooted you from my National Express coach. Great to see you." You did. I thought you were about to run me over because I had some headphones in and I went, "No."
Do your impression.
Of being scared?
Of Terence.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Terence there. So he hung out the window and went, "Whoa!"
Yes, that's what
happened. I said, "Hey, mate,
so
thank you, Terence, for your support."
Terry, he loved it. He's been talking about it this morning.
And someone has emailed in, there's no name, but it says, "The past few weeks I've been busy doing work on my house. I've no sofa to lounge on or do my usual stuffing my face with rubbish food. I've been busy, and as a result, I feel slimmer, fitter and healthier."
Oh, well, brilliant stuff. We don't know your name, but that's good to know. So do keep those views coming in. Slim Jim. We'll call you that. gbnews.com/yoursay. Now, here on Saturday morning, it's our favourite part of the day, isn't it? We love to give a spotlight to amazing people who do amazing things. And today we've got 2 fantastic individuals who have invented a teddy bear to help children who are suffering with mental health.
Yes, so Lynn and Samantha Crilly came up with the idea for the Trouble Muncher toy following Samantha's own battle with an eating disorder and OCD.
Yes, the teddy comes with a notepad and encourages its owners to write down what's troubling them, and then they can pop the note into the rucksack on the bear's back.
We're delighted now to be joined by both Lynn and Samantha Crilly in the studio. Congratulations, first of all, to you both, and also joined by the Trouble Munchers.
Hello.
Tell us about the background of this project. When did it start? And, of course, it stems from your own troubles, I guess.
Yeah, so I've struggled with mental health most of my life, actually. And, oh, no, it's fine. I've got one. I feel quite sorry for you. But and one thing I always did was message my mum, and it was a thought disassociation kind of technique. I would message you, even now, I message you thoughts that come into my mind, but massively when I was younger. And I thought, what happens if you're younger and you don't have this? So that's where the Trouble Muncher came into thought of you write your little troubles down, put it in the rucksack, go to bed. Yeah, he eats them up, but the parents actually take the note out and they can read the troubles. So it's both benefiting the parents, but also thought disassociation and kind of the middleman if there's not really much communication going on for many reasons. But yeah, that's where he came from.
I can imagine for a child it's really cathartic to actually write things down.
Yeah.
They were problem shared is problem halved.
Yeah, and I think in today's technology-fueled world, I think we go back to basics and it just helps them to process by writing it down. Everything's so instant these days. It just helps them to write it down. They can write it down with their parents or their carers and share it with them as they're doing it and make it sort of like a fun exercise. But or they can do it. What I have known is that some people have written their troubles down and then just left the bear on the side, gone to school, knowing that the parents are going to take the troubles out of the back of the backpack because there's a pad, share your troubles.
So it's like an indirect way of telling your parents how you're feeling, what you're going through. Such a great idea. What's the feedback been from parents who have got a Trouble Muncher for their kids? What you've got any stories?
It's been really good. In one household, he sits on the kitchen side. And I think during the day, the parents, the children put their worries in or at night, and then they know that their parents will look at it during the day. And it's gone into some schools as well.
Like in the library.
He sits in the libraries or the cosy corners or the different places that they can go for nurture.
You'd imagine you'd want one of these Trouble Munchers in every classroom, in every school up and down the country, because children who are being bullied, for example, who feel like they can't tell their parents, they're too embarrassed to talk about it. This is such an important tool, isn't it, for children to communicate that?
It's just a friendly, non-judgmental face. I mean, some kids aren't quite aware that their parents do pick it up, and that's something that might be discussed further down the line. But yeah, it's just a safety net in case your kids come try and talk to you. But everyone's so busy these days, it's quite hard to be in the right place at the right time to listen. So you might try your best, but miss it at some kind of point in your day. And he just works as a safety kind of guard for any kids that can't talk about their troubles. So.
And I've got 2 kids, and I try and speak to my 4-year-old sometimes about how his day has been or something that happened the previous day. If there was an incident, maybe he was a little bit naughty and we, took away his, I don't know, the TV or something for an hour. And I say to him the next day, how did that make you feel? But because he's so young, he's only 4, he can't really articulate or find the words to tell us. But I guess with this, it's a new sort of dynamic of communication.
Yeah, I mean, even if they just write down a couple of words or just something so the parents are aware that something's going on and the teacher's aware that something's going on, they can keep an eye of who's kind of put writing in it and etc. So it's just opening that conversation that might not have been opened before.
What's it been like for you two as an experience, as a mother and daughter duo? You've been through this without the Trouble Muncher. What's it like now working on this project together?
It's amazing. It's really nice to be able to give back something that I was very blessed to have, and I am very blessed, I still am. But it's very rare. I think I mean, parents try their best, but we're probably a bit too close. It's a bit weird, but it is a bit weird.
I'm the same with my mum.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Close with your mum.
Yeah, we're so close. Yeah, like I tell you everything.
Everything.
Yeah, like
Sometimes
everything.
It's too much.
Yeah, I message and I'm like, oh dear, I wish you good for the rest of the day. But no, it's amazing, and it's something that we've been wanting to do for a while, isn't it?
I think mental health issues have grown and are quite prevalent, especially in our younger generation.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, they're our future for tomorrow, and they need support and help. And I think gone are the days where you go down, and I think technology has taken over a lot of communication.
All of that to contend with,
And I think this goes back to basics, like I said before, of just talking.
Yeah, well, you were saying Mum's a mental health counsellor and you had a young child who had Snapchat AI. So you talk to an AI in Snapchat and that's what they talk to now.
Well, look,
rather than
if any parents want to get hold of the Trouble Munchers, well, where can I get one, for example? I'd love to take one home for...
You can have one.
Yeah.
What's the website?
Do your website, Mum. Yeah.
It's lyncrilly.com. They're available on there, or my Instagram, which is lyn_Crilly.
There you go, lyncrilly.com. I've got it up in front of me right now. Thank you, you two. You are this week's Greatest Britain.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
The weather now.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office. The start of June and a beautiful start for most of us. High pressure building in from the west, bringing fine weather and some warm sunshine. Although it's not going to be completely sunny everywhere, there is some cloud to talk about. For East Anglia in the southeast first thing, a few light showers. They tend to disappear by the afternoon, but we keep the cool breeze coming in from the North Sea. Likewise, there'll be some patchy cloud elsewhere, especially for northern England into the Midlands and to parts of Wales, where the odd light shower couldn't be ruled out, but these are the exceptions. For many, it's a fine Saturday and plenty of warm sunshine, highs of 21 or 22 Celsius away from that cooler east coast. Into the evening, we'll see plenty of sunshine across much of Scotland, just some fair weather cloud out there, particularly over the hills. And for western Scotland, southern parts as well, temperatures likely to reach the high teens or even low 20s. Some decent sunny spells for Northern Ireland as well as we end the day. That thicker cloud, I think, for the Pennines into the Peak District, parts of the West Midlands and Mid Wales. Just one or two light showers. These will be the exception. For many places, it is a dry Saturday with that high pressure in control. Now, overnight, we're going to see patchy cloud here and there, but plenty of clear spells. One exception, Western Scotland. Thicker cloud arrives here along with some patchy rain and drizzle. That'll keep temperatures in the double figures, but where we've got the clear skies elsewhere, temperatures dipping into the single figures, even the mid to low single figures in one or two sheltered spots. But we begin Sunday with long sunny spells across eastern and southern Scotland, much of northern and central England and Wales. And actually, for southern parts of the UK, we keep those sunny spells into the afternoon with light winds, a beautiful day. Cloudier skies for northern England, Scotland and Northern Ireland, and some outbreaks of mainly light rain for the north and northwest of Scotland.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the Great British Summer Giveaway, and have we got a prize for you? There's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your summer spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction, so you can enjoy amazing days out this year. For a chance to win the iPhone, treats, and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
Yeah, for dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, I'm Ellie Costello with Ben Leo, and this is Saturday Morning Live.
Very good morning to you. Great to have your company this morning, and we've got lots to get through over the next hour, including all of the day's top stories with writer and podcaster Lewis Oakley and broadcaster and life coach Jenny Trent-Hughes.
And we're going to find out which profession makes you more likely to cheat on your partner. We'll be speaking to a psychotherapist to find out exactly what is going on in British relationships.
And Steph Tetchy has all the latest showbiz news, including Taylor Swift, who's got herself into the headlines again after a number of homeless people have been sent out of Edinburgh to make way for tourists ahead of her upcoming performances.
And we are going to be hearing from Rishi Sunak on his battle bus in the northeast of England at around 11:35, so don't miss that. This show is nothing without you, so do keep your views coming in this morning. We've had loads already, haven't we, this morning?
Some very funny ones, some which we can't read out on air, but very funny nonetheless, so keep them coming in, please.
Yeah, gbnews.com/your say.
But before we do anything else, Sophia Wensler has all your news headlines.
Ben, thank you. Good morning. It's 1 minute past 11. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. Foreign Secretary Lord Cameron says Hamas must accept the new ceasefire deal outlined by the US President Joe Biden. The US brokered proposal would begin with a 6-week ceasefire. Hostages would have to be freed in exchange for the release of Palestinian prisoners, and it would mean Israeli troops would have to withdraw from the populated areas of Gaza. Hamas described the 3-phase roadmap as positive, but a spokesperson for the Israeli Prime Minister says the war will not end until all its goals are achieved.
It's time to begin this new stage. For the hostages to come home, for Israel to be secure, for the suffering to stop, to begin.
Former Prime Minister Boris Johnson has come out in support of Donald Trump, saying a second presidency is more likely, not less, following his hush money trial. Donald Trump says he will appeal his conviction of falsifying business records, lashing out at what he calls a scam verdict. The former US president claims there was no hush money. It was a normal non-disclosure agreement, properly categorised as a legal expense. The Prime Minister has promised cash for British towns as the general election campaign enters its second week. Rishi Sunak is pledging to give £20 million to 30 towns across the country, a move Labour has branded reckless and is an unfunded commitment. The Tory party says it would add the places, many of which are based in the Midlands and the North, to its existing long-term plan for towns. Conservative Minister Andrew Griffith says voters have a clear choice.
We're about sort of a week into the full-on campaign. I'll be out meeting voters this morning as I am. People, are not necessarily made up their mind. I think all of the polls and research I've seen show a large number of people are undecided. And the big job of work for us all, because I think people understand what this Conservative government has done, what it stands for. There's only 2 potential prime ministers on the 5th of July who are going to walk through number 10. I think it's clear what you get with the Conservatives. We don't know enough, do we, about what Labour would do.
Meanwhile, Labour is promoting its Power Up agenda. Leader Sir Keir Starmer, Deputy Leader Angela Rayner and Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves unveiled their battle bus, which will travel 5,000 miles across the country. They're describing the Conservatives' Levelling Up pledge as a phony gimmick, saying they have data showing which areas will be hit if the Tories get back into government. Their figures suggest that in the northeast of England, people will be £5,400 worse off, and in the southwest, families will be £4,300 poorer.
Want change, the power's with you because the vote is with you. You have to vote for change. We have changed this Labour Party and put it back in the service of working people. What we're asking now, humbly asking, is the opportunity to change our country and put it back in the service of working people. And that requires both setting out our ambition to change the country, but also the first steps, the down payment, if you like, stabilising the economy, making sure we can deal with our waiting list, getting people back into work, setting up Great British Energy to keep bills down. They are the first steps to the change this country desperately needs.
The UK's ambassador to Mexico has reportedly been sacked after he pointed a gun at an embassy staff member. A video posted on social media appears to show John Benjamin aiming a rifle at another man while in a vehicle. It was also captioned, "In context of daily killings in Mexico by drug dealers, he dares to joke." The Foreign Office says it's aware of the incident and has taken appropriate action. And King Charles has personally given a D-Day veteran who turned 100 a birthday card. Jim Miller was invited to Buckingham Palace, where he told the King about his experiences during the Second World War. Mr Miller landed on the Normandy beaches in June 1944 and took part in the Allied military operation there. He said he was totally surprised and delighted to be invited to Buckingham Palace. And for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now it's back to Ben and Ellie.
Thanks, Sphere, and welcome to Saturday Morning Live. The time is 6 minutes past 11. Loads of you getting in touch this morning. Thank you so much. We're going to start with Elizabeth, who's been in touch, saying Ellie is right. Which is nice to
Always.
hear. Always, yes. We'll just leave it at that. Yeah, full stop. It's not just about eating less, it's about what you eat that matters. I lost 2 stone in about 3 months by simply reducing carbs by half, increasing protein and veg, and minimising sugar and alcohol. But I do enjoy what I like when I'm going out. So it's all about balance, right?
Exactly, all about balance. Andrew, you say, I found the keto diet with exercise was the only diet that has ever worked for me, and it worked quickly and easily. Keto, if you don't know, it's pretty much just all fat, no carbs. So steak, eggs, avocados, that kind of thing.
It wouldn't be for me. And Paul, on the Trouble Muncher toy that we were just talking about with our Greatest Britons this week, says maybe kids should put their smartphones in a Trouble Muncher. That would get rid of their mental health issues. I do feel sorry for children in this day and age, don't you?
Yeah, the pressure.
Or you're raising children in this day of age.
I say all the time, when I was a kid, if you got bullied on the playground and you went home and that was your refuge. These days, you're added to WhatsApp groups 24/7. It's constant. So I feel very, very sorry for children.
Yeah, so do I. Well, do keep your views coming in this morning. We love to hear from you, don't we? gbnews.com/yoursay.
Yes, right. Now, a Tory wipeout could be on the cards, with a new poll showing the Conservatives could be reduced to just 72 seats at next month's general election.
Yes, Labour is also predicted to win by a huge landslide with a possible 302-seat majority.
OK, well, joining us now is GB News political correspondent Catherine Forster. Good morning, Catherine. Is this new poll this morning a surprise to any of the Conservative cohorts you're with up there?
Honestly, they don't want to discuss it. I was with one of the PM's team when this broke last night. We were just having dinner, and basically they just battered it away. They said, you know, it doesn't matter what the polls say at the moment. The only poll that matters, of course, is on the 4th of July. They are focused. I mean, it must be dispiriting, this, mustn't it? Come on, because this poll in particular is predicting pretty much a Conservative wipeout. It's saying that Labour are on course to win 300 extra seats from where they are now, and the Conservatives to lose 300. It's saying that if it were replicated in the general election, Labour would get a 300-seat majority, and the Conservatives would be down to between 60 and 70, only less than 10 more than the Lib Dems. So it must be dispiriting, but they are trying very hard to focus focus on the job in hand. They know that they've got less than 5 weeks to turn things around. They think they're being very proactive. The Prime Minister still seems very upbeat, very energetic. They are coming out with lots of policies, coming out with new things all the time. They say they have to, because they've got to do something to try to counter this poll lead. Of course, Labour, in contrast, not saying terribly much, trying to make themselves as small a target as possible. They don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardise that lead. So the Conservatives today, here in North Yorkshire on the campaign trail, the Tories announcing new funding for towns, some £20 million extra for some 30 towns, including places like Bognor Regis, Halifax, Perth and Preston. But the problem is, are voters listening? Because going out and about around the country, so many people say to me they're sick of the Conservatives. They're not wildly enthusiastic about Labour, and many of them going to vote for Reform because they're just so fed up. Worth saying on this projection, Reform not forecast to win a single seat.
Okay, Catherine, thank you so much for that. We'll come back to you later in the day, I am sure.
Oh, we're going to be hearing from Rishi Sunak in around 25 minutes' time on that new funding for 30 towns. So we'll bring that to you just after 11:30. Now, to go through the top stories in the papers today, we're delighted to be joined by writer and podcaster Lewis Oakley and the broadcaster and life coach Jenny Trent-Hughes. Morning to you both. Jenny.
Good morning.
I have found Ed Davey and the Lib Dem campaign to be absolutely fascinating the past week or so. It seems as though Ed Davey has taken it upon himself to be quite the comedian with campaign stunts in the past few days. I think yesterday we saw him in a chef hat, baking biscuits. We've seen him on a children's water slide in that big yellow rubber ring. And we've also seen him fall off his paddleboard many times up in the Lake District. What do you make of what you've seen from Ed Davey?
When I first moved to this country, it was the time of the late, great Paddy Ashdown. And who, to me, was such an incredible, incredible politician. And when I look at Ed Davey now, embarrassing himself, the Lib Dem party, I just want to shudder. They've used the word madcap to describe his activities. And madcap is one of those words that when you hear it, you know that whatever it is just terribly wrong. And the thing that upsets me is that I actually know quite a bit about the Lib Dems. And as a party, I think that at this point in time, they probably have the strongest and best collection of people in there running for office, working on the ground level. But what they need is a different leader. And I've been rabbiting on about this now for about 3 years. And this current behavior of his, I'm calling them all up going, you see, this is what I've told you, get rid of this man.
Lewis, he's just having some fun, isn't he? He's showing his character. You've got the likes of Starmer and Sunak who are accused of being droids and robots. So Ed Davey surely is just going against the grain and having a laugh.
Look, if we're being serious, I agree with what Jenny said. But if I think of what the nation needs in this election campaign, yes, we need some fun. And, you know, you're seeing these videos of him falling off and doing silly things. And, you know, that is kind of, you know, what elections are about. You know, these politicians pretending they're normal people and would, you know, go and pull a pint or whatever it is. So I think it brings a much-needed bit of fresh air into the situation. You've got to think as well, Lib Dems, you know, maybe they're a bit of a gateway vote, if that makes sense. They kind of, you know, target more the young and they've got to kind of talk the language they're talking. And that's, you know, I think Lib Dems probably, I haven't seen any polling on it, probably the younger people, that's probably who they vote for first before they get into Labour and Conservatives. And you've also got to think, it is a lot now about social media. I mean, you know, people that are watching the news like this or reading newspapers, they want to know about policy. But for the people that probably only are interacting with the general election through social media clips and memes, they're probably doing quite well. I don't think it's going to help the country at all, but it's interesting, at least.
And what do you think about Jenny's thoughts on Sir Ed Davey not being the right leader? Because there are a lot of people out there who would be angered by this sort of carry-on by Sir Ed Davey, and they'll never forgive him for his role in the post office scandal. And they just say they're so angry by that.
Yeah, I actually do agree with that. He's not the leader they need at this moment. I don't know who exactly it is, who they've got to choose from, but he's he just doesn't cut through. I mean, to be honest, if you'd have asked me 3 weeks ago who's leading the Lib Dems, I would have not said it with confidence. It's only in the last few weeks, because he's been falling around all over the place, I remembered his name. So they need someone memorable, charismatic, but someone that can also inject a bit of fun and positivity and make people believe, things can get better.
Well, talking of policy, Jenny, the Lib Dems have pledged to tackle high football stadium ticket prices and TV subscription prices by planning 10 free-to-air Premier League games a season if the Lib Dems make government. I mean, I'm not sure how, A, they'd enforce that, but B, I mean, is that a vote winner? Free Premier League games for the electorate?
Well, it seems to me that he's aiming for two groups of people that don't particularly care. The under 7 or under 8 who think that people falling down all over the place and wearing funny clothes is entertaining, and people who spend a large percentage of their money on television subscriptions. So, he's aiming for two groups. That's not going to bring in very many votes, in my opinion.
I mean, it's the detail that we're lacking here. I mean, how would you possibly implement this?
Who knows? I mean, this is just pie-in-the-sky stuff, and no one cares about. Come on. There's so many issues facing our country at the moment. Premier League football subscriptions is where you're going? I mean, it's laughable.
OK, Lewis, you wanted to talk about this story, didn't you, in the Times? The push for Britain to have more babies.
Yes, there is a huge push for more people to be having children. We've got a declining birth rate, a decline to 1.49% in 2022. There's two issues to this, right? Because one of it I agree with, and the other part I'm not so in agreement with. So I agree that it should be easier to have children. As someone that's got 3 kids, 2 that are very young, the cost of childcare, the cost of trying to do it, also the way family dynamics have shifted. I spent most of my weekends at my grandparents'. We now live away from our family, so you don't have that help at hand. It is really hard to be a parent, and it's also an aspirational thing. People want to be parents, and the fact that so many people are put off these days is something that needs to be tackled. My issue is that they're saying it's about the future economic risk to the economy, that basically if we don't have enough children, then we won't have enough taxpayers to look after the elderly. Well, I mean, that's a bit of a...
Right, because they'll plug that with migration. That seems to be the argument.
Well, no, but at the same time, we're hearing AI is going to replace all our jobs. So I do think we need to have, maybe some forward-looking, beyond a 5-year plan of what is 2050 actually going to look like? Are we going to need this many people if we've got robots serving us in shops and all this kind of thing? Maybe we should plan for the amount of people we're going to have.
Jenny, Elon Musk, the Tesla, SpaceX boss, richest man in the world.
You're bringing up all my faves today.
I'm quite sure I am. He says that the plummeting birth rate worldwide is a bigger existential threat to humanity than climate change. Of course, in Japan, there's a well-known stat that if they carry on with such a low birth rate, in just 70 years, there'll be no Japanese people left. Italy's birth rate is in the gutter. Ours is in the gutter. As Lewis said, probably down to a myriad of reasons. People can't get homes, which means they're not having families. But this also coincides with data that suggests young people, especially young men, are having the least amount of sex compared to previous generations. So is it also a case of men just don't know how to talk to women anymore? They're too stuck on their phones, playing video games. Is there anything in that?
No.
No?
Well, I wanted to get back to the Elon Musk thing for a minute. As far as I know, isn't he personally trying to eradicate the problem on his own? How many children? Does he have
got 9 or 10.
kids or something like that? I get really perturbed when people start blaming things on men do this, men don't do that, it's men's fault. It isn't, it's everybody's fault. And one of the things that I don't understand, I don't know about you two, we can talk about it. One of the things to me about being in love, one of the first things that this might be the one, is you want to have a child with this person. So, that to me is actually a natural primeval urge. And it really bothers me. Yes, it is very, very expensive. When I got married, we did without. We did without to be able to raise our child. And I think that we do need to continue to have children. And when people tell me I'm not having a child because I can't afford it, inside that actually makes me really sad, because I feel if you can do it and if you want to do it, that having a child is just the greatest thing.
It's easier said than done, but I agree with you. I've always said, just if you think you can't afford it, just do it, and it sounds very irresponsible, but just do it and things will happen and things will work out. You'll find a way, because so many generations before us have gone through much worse. If you're single mums working multiple jobs, you know, living in really terrible homes, you just find a way through. But as I said, I know it's easier said than done, because of course you want to raise a child in the best possible way, with a nice loving home, in a stable relationship. So I do get it.
But I don't want to be like the politician that was on earlier and you know, and not answer your question. But I do think that it is something. I do think that it is something that we have to do. That it's really important that we have, you know, that we all try to have children.
Yeah. But for the right reasons, right? Not for the future economy.
Yes. Well.
No. Well, we will certainly have a view on that. gbnews.com/yours say. Do send them in to us. We'll try and share as many as we can throughout the programme. Lewis Oakley, Jenny Trent-Hughes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lots more to come in the show. Lots of showbiz, including that Taylor Swift story. Apparently all her fans, the homeless people in Edinburgh, were booted out of local hotels. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't think that's actually down to Taylor Swift.
No, you're in fierce defence of Taylor this morning, but we'll find out more about that very, very shortly. Also, which professions mean you're more likely to cheat on your partner? Send your thoughts in. We'll read them out in just a sec. This is Saturday Morning.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
How does it work in your home then when you're discussing politics, especially with your young son, Nigel?
Well, I mean, we discuss politics rather than argue about it. Both of us are political professionals. We've been in the game a long time, so we understand that. So we're more keen on what is actually going on and how things are working out than clashing over opinions. Now, Claire is a Tory Brexiteer. I'm a Labour Remainer.
Do you think relationships like your own are going to become less and less common?
I think they are, and I think we can see that politics has become very divided, it's become very toxic, and we've lost that art of debating. I'm more than happy to speak to anybody on any subject to do with politics, because I think it's only healthy to listen to someone's opinion. You may not agree with it, you may think that they're ridiculous. However, I think it's really important that you hear those views, because if you only become encased in a bubble of your own opinion, you're never going to learn anything. And I think politics needs that. You need to be able to explore other sides of an argument. It also makes you better at arguing. Yeah. And Nigel and I constantly disagree on various bits and pieces, but you learn how to place your argument so much better because you know what the other side are thinking. Now, if we had that across the country and across the House of Commons, we could have so much better debate and so many better different opinions coming through, and it would be a lot healthier.
And polite debate, which always strikes me about you two. You disagree on most things when it comes to politics, but you do so with so much humour and so much respect for one another.
Well, we find politics fun, and so when we bring politics into the home, we want to have fun with it too.
Britain's election channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. Let's go straight to the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, who's on the campaign trail in the north of England today, launching his battle bus.
Acting in a way that's threatening our values and our interests abroad and at home, threatening the integrity of our borders. And these uncertain times demand bold action and a clear plan to deliver a secure future for this country. That's what we Conservatives offer. And look at what you get from the Labour Party. Just take the one issue of borders. We're the ones taking bold action, getting the planes off to Rwanda, establishing that deterrent so that people know that if they come here illegally, they can't stay. Across Europe, the penny has dropped that our approach is the right one. The one person who doesn't get that is Keir Starmer. It's going to release everybody that we've detained, cancel those flights, offer an amnesty to illegal migrants, making us the soft touch of Europe when it comes to asylum seekers, and we absolutely can't let that happen. And in every way, Labour would make our country less safe and less secure. Now, Keir Starmer and the Labour Party want you to believe that this election is over before it's even started. The result is a foregone conclusion. Well, you know what? I'm going to work my socks off every day of this campaign, talk to as many people as I can, earn the trust of the public. And you know what? I don't think the British public like being taken for granted, do they? No. Because whilst we're putting bold ideas on the table, a new form of national service, the Triple Lock Plus, 100,000 new apprenticeships, we've heard nothing from Keir Starmer and the Labour Party, not a single new idea about what they would do in the future. And remember, if he was happy to abandon every promise that he made to become Labour leader as soon as he got that job, what makes you think that he wouldn't do exactly the same thing all over again if he became Prime Minister? And ultimately, if he doesn't stand for anything himself, how can he stand up for all of you, right? He can't. Just see what's happened over this Diane Abbott situation, right? And it confirms what we know about him, is that he doesn't stick by anything he says, just constantly changes his mind. And it's clear that Angela Rayner is in charge of the Labour Party and not him at the end of the day. And if he's given in to her and the left on that, imagine what he'll give into when it comes to higher taxes, the union's demands, or weakening our defence and security. Now, these uncertain times call for bold action, a clear plan to deliver a secure future. That's what we're about. We're working for a Britain where we have a renewed sense of confidence in our communities, a pride in our country, a Britain where your hard work, everyone's hard work, is rewarded, where the opportunities that were there for the previous generation are there for the next, and a Britain where, above all, your safety, our security is assured. That's the secure future that we're fighting for at this election. That's the secure future that our country wants and deserves. And with everyone's support, that's the secure future that we can all deliver. So let's go out there and smash it. Yeah. All right.
An energised Rishi Sunak there launching his battle bus in North Yorkshire, talking about how only the Conservatives have a plan after this general election, and accuses Sir Keir Starmer of taking the great British public for granted. What do you make of it, Ben?
Yeah, interesting. I wouldn't say he was energised. I think we have a differing opinion.
But I think for Rishi Sunak, that was quite energised.
And we did giggle at one moment where he was it was like a pantomime-esque rallying cry to the crowd. What was it he said? Isn't that right?
Isn't that right?
Or something akin to that.
That's what I mean. We won't stand for that, will we? That's the line, yes. And he did say he's going to work his socks off in the run-up to the elections. Well, Rishi Sunak.
I mentioned it this morning to Catherine Forster. Camilla Tominey's Telegraph column yesterday says that actually whisper it quietly, quote-unquote, but apparently Sunak and the Tories are making a big comeback. But we'll see over the next 5 to 6 weeks.
Now, do stay with us. We're going to go to a short break. We've got lots more coming up. We're going to be going through the showbiz, and we're also going to be talking about which jobs you're most likely to cheat in, apparently. Lucy Beresford. That's next on Saturday Morning Live on GB News.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. Every night from 11 p.m.
Apparently alcohol abuse is costing England £27 billion a year. I mean, in fairness, that's the price of 2 rounds in London, Nicholas.
Yeah, tell me about it. Not that I'm a big consumer of alcohol. I'm very Mediterranean in my consumption. But revealed, alcohol abuse costs soar to £27 billion a year. So this cost basically encompasses a variety of aspects, from health-related problems, so the cost on the NHS, lack of productivity, people who lose their jobs, social services, and all that. And, of course, it has been on the rise, 37% more compared to last time this was studied in 2003. So now Institute of Alcohol Studies and some other groups are pushing or asking for tougher taxes and tougher regulation. But Is that the solution? Like in ancient Rome, they said, in medium stat virtus, like moderation. Virtue is in moderation. And again, if they're going to raise the price, people like myself or yourself who are moderate consumers... Pardon?
You're going to turn to heroin. Because it'll become... I mean, well, this is what's happened in Scotland.
It becomes unaffordable, so...
Yeah, in Scotland, they had minimum unit alcohol pricing, and so it pushes up the cost of getting off your tree for your average Scottish ne'er-do-well who likes to sit on a bus stop and drink a bottle of cider. So instead, they're turning to street drugs, which are cheaper by comparison.
That is just terrible. I like that the alcohol industry have come back on this. A guy called Matt Lambert, who's the chief executive of the Portman Group, and they represent the alcohol industry. And he says that the IAS, that's the group who've created this, have failed to take into account the significant direct economic contribution of the alcohol industry to the wider economic and social benefits of moderate and responsible alcohol consumption. Well, it's so true, isn't it? We've got a declining birth rate. We need people to get drunk and chat each other up.
Yeah.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, unlike you.
That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice.
Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning from the GB Newsroom at 11:30. Your headlines. Foreign Secretary Lord Cameron says Hamas must accept the new ceasefire deal outlined by the US President Joe Biden. The US brokered proposal would begin with a 6-week ceasefire. Hostages would have to be freed in exchange for the release of Palestinian prisoners. Hamas described the three-phase roadmap as positive, but a spokesperson for the Israeli Prime Minister says the war will not end until all its goals are achieved. The Prime Minister has promised cash for British towns as the general election campaign enters its second weekend. Rishi Sunak is pledging to give £20 million to 30 towns across the country, a move Labour has branded reckless and is an unfunded commitment. Meanwhile, Labour is promoting its Power Up agenda. Leader Sir Keir Starmer, Deputy Leader Angela Rayner and Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves unveiled their battle bus, which will travel 5,000 miles across the country. They're describing the Conservatives' Levelling Up pledge as a phony gimmick. And for the latest story, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Ben and Ellie with you on Saturday Morning Live, only on GB News. Now, a very interesting story coming up, one that a lot of you have been getting in touch about, lots of theories. So get this, right? Almost half of those seeking to have an affair are happier with their job than with their primary relationship. But what exactly does a cheater do for a living?
Well, medical assistants and nurses, surprisingly, top the lists of professions for female cheaters, and it's jobs in IT or tech for male cheaters, which I think is less of a surprise.
No.
This is all according to a survey by the dating site Ashley Madison.
OK, so why do people cheat? To answer this, we're joined now by broadcaster and psychotherapist Lucy Beresford. Good morning, Lucy.
Morning, Lucy.
So, is it OK of me to say naughty nurses in this day and age? Am I going to get cancelled for that?
You're out.
Yeah, I'm out.
Been cancelled.
See ya.
There's the door.
But yes, you're talking about the caring professions, and I think it's very appropriate.
I'm surprised by that.
Women, well, because they're very nurturing, very loving, very giving, whereas the males who are in tech and IT, very strategic, kind of working in their lives in terms of 3D chess, and that's maybe how they structure their social life as well.
But you'd think the caring jobs, like being a nurse, you'd have such guilt to cheat on your partner.
I think the interesting thing is, why do people cheat?
Yes.
And from this survey, it's very clear that actually nearly a third of people who are married say that they are happily married, even though they are cheating. So what does that tell you? And I think what it says is that some people are not looking to blow up their primary relationship when they're having an affair. What they are discovering is that that primary relationship is not fulfilling all of their needs. They don't feel validated, they don't feel heard, they don't feel seen. And if you are a very giving person, if you're very loving, that can be incredibly demoralising. But some of the other interesting information was that 1 in 4 people, or 4 out of 10 actually, 4 out of 10 people were firstborn. That if you're likely to cheat, the chances are you might be the firstborn in your family, whereas only 1 in 10 are actually only children, which suggests to me that only children are much more self-sufficient emotionally.
Is there a link between high-pressure jobs, maybe nurses infamously, you know, they're working long hours, underpaid, stressed out? Is there a link between jobs of that nature and cheating, maybe as a relief?
Absolutely, as a stress release, one might almost say. But then again, that's the other question around why do people have affairs? Is it just about sex, or is it about emotional connection? Is it about emotional validation? And increasingly, people are discovering that their primary relationship is just not a place where they feel safe to let their vulnerability out. And that if you can find a relationship with someone who can do that, and you only have one life. And also in terms of non-monogamy, Ashley Madison did another piece of research last year about whether people are actually becoming more accepting of the fact that you're not going to stay with the same person for the rest of your life. I have to say that one of the most interesting things about this is star signs. It says that actually if you're Leo, if you're a male, the chances are you're going to cheat. And if you're female, it's much more the air signs, like sort of, or even fiery signs like Sagittarius and Aries. So watch out. Always ask what that person's star sign is when you go on your first date.
But it is interesting, having said that, this survey found that personality didn't actually come into it that much. It was about half and half if you're an introvert or an extrovert that you'd be likely to have an affair.
I think that's right. And I think that just speaks to the fact that all people want to have a good emotional connection. So it doesn't matter whether you're really social or whether you're someone who has to recharge your batteries in private time, that actually we only ever want 3 things in life. We want to feel safe, we want to feel loved, but we also want to feel heard. And in increasingly a number of marriages and long-term relationships, we get into grooves, we get into ruts, and we stop hearing our partner. We stop listening to them, and they stop listening to us. And that is a surefire way of having an affair.
Well, so the top 5 professions among female respondents of cheaters, 1 was the medical assistant nurse, as we've already covered. Number 2 were teachers and professors. Number 3, marketing and PR specialists. 4th, stay-at-home parents. Is that the lonely housewife kind of thing?
I think it could be, yes. And actually what's really interesting is that a lot of single men sign up to Ashley Madison in order to meet married women. So both parties are not necessarily looking, as I said at the beginning, to blow up the primary relationship. What they're looking for is an extra kind of experience. And I think if you're feeling very unvalidated emotionally, if your emotional needs are not being met, that is a very dispiriting place to be. And if they're not being met in your primary marriage, that's a very lonely place to be.
Are we losing what is just a traditional faithful marriage, where just 2 people are just married for life, they're in love, and they're not looking elsewhere?
But that was a construct that was created in sort of the 15th century.
You think it's outdated?
I think it's worth paying attention to the fact that if you lived to 40, you could expect to be with your primary partner for the rest of your life. If you can live to 110, which frankly anyone who's Gen Z could realistically, with medical advancements, live to 110, can you realistically expect to grow and nourish and nurture the same person that you met when you were 22?
Are you going to be having sex at 110?
I hope so.
You never know. Miracle wonders. The top 5, by the way, just to finish off, the top 5 male respondents were tradespeople, IT techs, then engineers, sales managers and construction workers. Maybe not so many surprises in there.
No. Lucy Beresford, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much. Do let us know what you think about that, gbnews.com/you'll say. It makes me quite sad.
Yeah. Yes, it is sad, but I think it's today's age with social media. There's lots of promotion of, what do they call it? Polygamy, whatever it's called.
Polyamorous relationships,
sorry, yeah.
and things, yeah.
I don't know.
Let us know what you think. I know you'll have a view. Now it's time for your weekly dose of showbiz news, and we have our favourite person in the studio. It's our lovely Stephanie Tecci with us.
Good
Stephanie,
morning.
good to see you.
I was so interested in that chat.
I know, your face
I was
is
like, as a
shocked
single
smile.
person, you think to yourself, oh my gosh, what hope do I have?
I know. It's awful, isn't it? Variety is what I would say.
That's a good point.
It's no bad thing.
That's a good point, actually. Single and free to mingle.
And you've got a packed schedule.
Yes, I do. It's now getting to the summer, which means we have awesome films coming up. And one that I'm really, really excited, which shaped my childhood, was Beverly Hills Cop. And it's back for the fourth instalment with Eddie Murphy. We've got a clip here so we can tease the viewers with.
Good morning, everybody. It's another beautiful day here in Beverly Hills.
What the hell was that?
Let me guess. Foley.
Did you say Foley? Foley! We stole a helicopter!
I didn't realize that you couldn't really fly a helicopter. Otherwise, I would have came up with a different idea. I told you it was a bad idea.
Oh, that looks
I
great.
cannot wait for it to come out. It's almost been 20 years since we've seen Eddie Murphy play Axel Foley. It's been one of those legendary characters that people just love him for. It's full of comedy, full of a bit of detective work. It's due out in July. He said he found it quite difficult filming this because he said when he first done the first edition of this, he was in his 20s. He's now in his 50s having to do all this high-impact action work, which he said did take its toll, but by the looks of it looks pretty slick.
He looks good, though.
He does. He doesn't age. He's a bit like a vampire, Eddie Murphy. But I think it will be good. And it's on Netflix, so people do not have to go far. They do not have to venture to cinemas, and they can watch it and stream it from home. So I think it will be a good instalment.
Do you know if the classic theme, the song, the soundtrack?
I've heard a bit of it, Ben, and I think it's got a bit of a 2024 remix to it. No. You can still tell it's the same song, but it's just got this kind of remix to it. But, you know, you have to satisfy Gen Z, and then us old lot, they'll just play a bit of it, so it'll keep us happy.
No, it looks fabulous, and that's set to come out in the autumn.
Yes. No, July.
Oh, July.
July the 3rd. July the 3rd. Only a month to go.
Just before the general election. Wonderful.
Ooh.
Should we talk about Taylor Swift, please?
Oh, gosh.
Out there, isn't there?
There is. I think a lot of people are trying to take their anger out on Taylor because they think she's shifting the homeless people in Edinburgh City, and that is not the case. So basically, she's coming with her Eras tour, which is sold out to Edinburgh this month on the 7th and the 8th and 9th. Edinburgh, at the moment, they've got a housing emergency, and what they do with their homeless people, they put them up in tourist accommodations. Taylor's concert has sold out to 200,000 people, so can you imagine they've taken up most of the accommodation there. So now the council are facing a problem of what they're going to be doing with these homeless people who usually stay at the hotels for a week. So they're shifting them to Aberdeen and Newcastle at the moment. But to be honest, I don't think Taylor's going to take this because she's getting a lot of negative press for this. But usually when Taylor comes into town, she always donates to food banks, to charities and stuff. So I can imagine she's going to invest quite a bit into Edinburgh and for their homeless people.
Some would argue that having a bank balance as big as Taylor Swift, she should maybe, I don't know, get all the homeless people a place to live, maybe.
Oh, gosh, that's pushing it, but you never know. I think with all this bad press coming out, I don't think Taylor's just going to turn up in Edinburgh and just do her shows and forget what is going on.
She'll do something.
And, you know, the good thing about this now, it puts it out there because we're now all talking about it. And, you know, a lot of the councillors are saying, we've got this housing emergency. So actually, Taylor Swift indirectly is making us focus on what are we doing with the homeless people in Edinburgh.
Yeah, it's shone a light on it, hasn't it? Look, we've got 45 seconds.
Yes.
What would you like to tell us about J-Lo?
Let's talk about J-Lo. So apparently it's trouble in paradise with her and Ben Affleck. And yesterday she came out and announced that she's cancelling her tour in the US. She said she wants to spend more time with her friends and family, which is obviously making people think, OK, maybe their marriage is really on the rocks. But to be honest, if you want my opinion, I think it's because she had low ticket sales. Like, I don't think you want to be J-Lo and perform in half-empty stadiums.
They were spotted without their wedding rings.
They were, and every time I see them, Ben, they just don't look happy. But, you know, she's quite a workaholic and he likes to be out of the limelight. So, you know, we're talking about couples here and it's just how do they balance that? And if she's saying she's taking time out to be with her family, hopefully they will be mending their relationship.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. We'll watch this space, Stephanie.
I know.
Good to see you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ben. Looking forward to that new film. Netflix, going to chill out next month.
Yeah, all of that to look forward to after the general election. Now we'll be back after this very short break.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We've got a lot of fine weather in store across the UK this weekend, some warm sunshine, but we'll see rain into the northwest later. It's high pressure that's dominating at the moment, sitting out towards the west of the UK. That's giving us the generally fine and settled conditions. A bit of a northerly breeze, certainly down towards the southeast, so a bit of a chilly feel here. And that's certainly the case as we head into this afternoon. There will be lots of fine, settled weather around, certainly towards the north and northwest of the UK. Lots of sunshine across Scotland and Northern Ireland, and down towards the far south of England too, with some patchy cloud across central parts of England into parts of Wales. Might just produce the odd shower, but on the whole, it's set fair. Temperatures in the south up to 21, possibly 22 degrees, 72 in Fahrenheit, and fairly warm towards the north in places too, 20 Celsius in the central belt, for example. As we head into the evening, we'll hold on to lots of sunshine across Scotland, a bit of patchy cloud down towards the southeast, might just produce the odd shower, but on the whole it is set fair for the end of the day, and set fair too across Northern Ireland. Again, some patchy cloud, so sunshine a bit hazy here. Lots of sunshine across the north of England, almost wall-to-wall sunshine in fact here to end the day. And across England and Wales, still some patchy cloud around, but on the whole here too it will be dry to end the afternoon. As we head into the evening and through the overnight period, the cloud across the south will tend to fade, so we'll see lots of clear weather around across the bulk of the UK, seeing some patchy mist and fog developing in places and turning quite chilly in rural spots too. Although towns and city temperatures will generally hold up near double figures, I think in some rural spots we could dip down to 2 or 3 Celsius, so we can't completely rule out a patchy frost by the morning tomorrow. Notice by Sunday morning we'll have some outbreaks of rain arriving across the far northwest of the UK, and that will gradually slip its way southeastwards into the north and west of Scotland, into parts of Northern Ireland too as we go through the day on Sunday. But elsewhere, once again, a lot of fine, settled weather around, lots of sunshine, and if anything, a little bit warmer down towards the south and southeast of the UK. Here we could see temperatures up to 23, possibly even locally 24 degrees, a bit cooler with the cloud and rain there towards the northwest.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, unlike you.
That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
Yeah, for dartball practice.
Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Welcome back. Oh, sorry, hello, Snap.
No, don't worry. Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. Now, do you remember the Willy Wonka fiasco earlier this year?
Yes, with the really rubbish event set up.
Yes, people paying good money to go to this event turned out to be a bit of a flop. But it's happened again.
Oh, no.
But this time with Lego.
Oh dear, yeah. A Lego event apparently hailed as the world's largest brick festival has seen visitors demanding a refund over the flop after calling the event bleak and a rip-off. We had this, of course, with Winter Wonderlands as well. Do you remember over Christmas?
Oh, no, I didn't see that.
A few years back, maybe one this December gone as well. There was Winter Wonderlands, apparently meant to be some magical experience, you know, very fairy tale-like and wintry, and it was just a bit of fake snow in the corner and some fairy lights.
No.
And parents had paid, you know, sort of 70, 80 quid for a ticket.
Well, they're so expensive. This is the thing. Do we have pictures of this? I hope we do. Visitors claimed in this instance that they were greeted with a near-empty room. Here we go. It looks like a village hall, doesn't it? This is at the Brick Fest Live experience at Birmingham's NEC venue over the bank holiday. And there's just very little going on. Just a few Lego blocks in the centre of the room if you're listening on the radio.
It looks like the warehouse is just too big for the setup. Maybe just get a smaller room, it'd probably look better. We're joined now by George Gosinas, owner of the Yellow Brick Lab. Apologies if I pronounced that incorrectly, George. How do you pronounce it?
No problem. It is good seeing us.
Oh, there you go. You had it. Spot
Good morning,
on.
Perfect.
Good morning to you. Tell us about this event. I mean, it looks pretty underwhelming, but was it actually underwhelming for parents? What are the reviews like having been there for the kids and their mums and dads?
I haven't been to witness it myself. It was brought to my attention by your crew, in fact, and I had a look a little bit in it. It does look a little bit underwhelming. People go to these type of events with high expectations, spectacular models being built, rare, if you like, figures to have a closer look at, etc. So, yes, I would imagine that the people that went there were not exactly surprised by the, positively surprised, I mean, by the result.
And it's such a shame, isn't it, especially for Lego enthusiasts, of which there are so many in this country, you being one of them as the owner of the Yellow Brick Lab. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, Yellow Brick Lab is just using the most powerful, in my opinion, toy in the world as a vehicle, as an instrument, if you like, to introduce children to robotics and computer programming. So we're trying to make the most of play and learning through play without realizing it. So this is what we do. We organize after-school clubs mainly, or work within schools to put the learnings that the children learn every day through their STEM curriculum into practice, giving them a hands-on experience in building robots and then bringing them to life with computer coding.
And George, just on a basic level, what is it about Lego that kids love so much? What is it that captures their young minds? Because, I mean, to me, I never played with Lego as a kid, but it's just bricks that you step on and it's kind of, you know, does your head in a bit and it hurts your foot.
That is quite painful indeed. I think that what appeals with the Lego system is the fact that there are limitless possibilities to bring to life your imagination and everything that you can naturally come up with. So people just love building and converting and trying to bring to life what they have in their minds. So it is something that you can do either on your own or you can do it with friends. It's something that you feel very satisfied completing yourself once you are following instructions, or very satisfied when you finally manage to bring to life what you have in your mind.
George Gotsinas, we are out of time, I'm afraid, but really good to see you this morning.
Thank you, George.
Very much.
OK, elsewhere, the iconic IWM Duxford Summer Air Show returns to the skies today.
Yes, this year the event theme is, of course, D-Day 80, which commemorates the 80th anniversary of the famous Normandy landings. The anniversary is next Thursday.
Joining us now from the event is GB News reporter Will Hollis. Good morning, Will. What's the latest?
Yes, well, some 38,000 people have descended on the Imperial War Museum in Duxford because they want to see the aircraft that made D-Day a success. This week, the country and the world marks 80 years since the D-Day landings, the largest land, sea and airborne mission in history. Now, a lot of people will be coming down here because they have a family connection and want to feel a little bit closer to that family history, but many people are just here to see the fantastic aircraft that are going to be on display today. We're talking Spitfires and Hurricanes, but another big one are the Dakotas, the transport aircraft that thousands of paratroopers jumped from into Normandy, and in special honour of remembering those people, 100 parachutists are expected to drop into the airfield behind me. That's if the weather holds up. The wind is a big thing to consider when you've got people jumping out of aeroplanes, just like it was back in 1944. The D-Day landings were delayed by a couple of days just because of the weather. Now, while there are lots of aircraft that people are excited to see, there are some aircraft missing from the Battle of Britain memorial flights last week when Squadron Leader Mark Long crashed the Spitfire in RAF Coningsby. All of those aircraft were grounded, and the Ministry of Defence say that while they are investigating right now, they can't safely start flying those aircraft again until they come to the conclusion of what happened. So that means that those aircraft aren't here today, but they're also not going to be at the D-Day 80 commemorations in Portsmouth on the 5th or in Normandy on the 6th. But here in special tribute to Squadron Leader Mark Long, who flew as part of the Battle of Britain memorial flight at RAF Coningsby and was due to be their new commanding officer. There's going to be a special tribute to him later today.
We can imagine there would be, and we can see so many people milling behind you, Will. And it is so important, isn't it, that those brave men that took part in the D-Day landings are remembered and honoured.
Yes, well, they say it's 80 years ago, but even for people that weren't around then, that weren't even children then, it is especially important because it is heritage and it is identity, but more than anything, it is honouring the people that at a time when everything was at stake, they really did give everything. And while today is about acknowledging some of that heritage, seeing some fantastic aircraft flying and even sort of acknowledging what happened in a special connection, it is ultimately, with many of these sorts of events, just like it is with Remembrance, about remembering what young men did 80 years ago.
Well said. Will Hollis there for us in Duxford. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Will. Thank you for joining us today. We're coming to the end of the show. A very quick email from Terence. We've been married for 46 years. The secret is sharing, compromise and giving each other space. Sadly, today's people are more selfish and wrapped in the world on their iPhones. So there we go. Nice little heartwarming message to finish off.
We'll be back at the same time, same place next week. Up next is Dawn Newsom.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We've got a lot of fine weather in store across the UK this weekend, some warm sunshine, but we'll see rain into the northwest later. It's high pressure that's dominating at the moment, sitting out towards the west of the UK. That's giving us the generally fine and settled conditions. A bit of a northerly breeze, certainly down towards the southeast, so a bit of a chilly feel here. And that's certainly the case as we head into this afternoon. There will be lots of fine, settled weather around, certainly towards the north and northwest of the UK. Lots of sunshine across Scotland and Northern Ireland, and down towards the far south of England too, with some patchy cloud across central parts of England into parts of Wales. Might just produce the odd shower, but on the whole, it's set fair. Temperatures in the south up to 21, possibly 22 degrees, 72 in Fahrenheit, and fairly warm towards the north in places too, 20 Celsius in the central belt, for example. As we head into the evening, we'll hold on to lots of sunshine across Scotland, a bit of patchy cloud down towards the southeast, might just produce the odd shower, but on the whole it is set fair for the end of the day, and set fair too across Northern Ireland. Again, some patchy cloud, so sunshine a bit hazy here. Lots of sunshine across the north of England, almost wall-to-wall sunshine in fact here to end the day. And across England and Wales, still some patchy cloud around, but on the whole here too it will be dry to end the afternoon. As we head into the evening and through the overnight period, the cloud across the south will tend to fade, so we'll see lots of clear weather around across the bulk of the UK, seeing some patchy mist and fog developing in places and turning quite chilly in rural spots too. Although towns and city temperatures will generally hold up near double figures, I think in some rural